Hello everyone, Alejandro Sanchez here with Apex Racing Academy. Today we're kicking things off with week 5 of IMSA, this time at Imola, on the Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo. This season we're giving away the Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo data pack for free. That includes both the qualifying and race setups and endurance setups in those weeks that have IMSA endurance as well. On top of that, we are also adding the rain setups on weeks that have rain forecasted with them. Plus, you will have access to our Discord server, where you can join our group coaching sessions every Wednesday evening. To grab your free data pack, just head over to apexracing.com or just click the link in the description below. Now, let's break down the circuit. Imola is quite a tricky circuit, with off-tracks especially, but for some reason the Mercedes feels really good around here. I don't really know why, because it shouldn't really be fast or comfortable, but it definitely is, so I was quite greatly surprised. It's probably one of my favorite cars around here, and GT3 of course. I think the Porsche is maybe a little bit faster, but I feel like the Mercedes is better on the long run, so I quite like it. There's a lot of curve strikes and it's a mix of low speed and medium speed. There's not really any very high speed corners whatsoever, but yeah, it has good traction, good drivability, so definitely quite a solid choice, and it's also quite nice over curves, so yeah, quite good. So without further delay, let's dive in. You can grab this season's Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo data pack for IMSA for free by clicking the link in the description below or by going over at apexracingac.com. For T1, you just want to stick it as close as possible to the left side for the beginning, and yeah, in order to do less meters obviously. And then for T1, you want to brake between this access road on the right and then 100 marker, and you want to take it in third gear. You want to brake really hard, roughly to around 85 to 90%, so you really gotta stamp on the brakes, and yeah, try to brake as soon as you start to turn in, because otherwise the ABS is gonna trigger and you're gonna understeer. And then just aim for this first inside sausage without actually driving over it, but that should be your apex. You should be hitting the throttle before you actually hit the curve, by the way, as we always do. And yeah, just drive as close as possible, almost overlapping with the edge of the sausage curve, but not driving actually over it, because it's gonna make the car bottom out quite heavily, and yeah, it's gonna make it understeer quite a bit. And then on the second part, I'm not going 100% throttle between these two corners whatsoever. And bit of the same story for the right-hander. You just want to drive it as close as possible to this sausage curve on the right, and yeah, just gotta be careful with the exits, and you gotta make sure that you don't understeer too much, because otherwise it's gonna be impossible to take the left-hander, the last left-hander of the sector, flat out if you do so. So yeah, very close to the inside sausage curve, as I was saying, like overlapping with the edge of it, but not quite driving over it, so I don't bottom out. And then on the exit, you want to make sure that you don't actually drive over this curve, because yeah, that means you've carried too much exit speed and you've understeered a little bit too much, and you won't be able to make it back in time to the right side in order to take this corner flat. Now for this corner, we are gonna short shift to fourth before we actually hit the sausage curve. This sausage curve we actually want to hit, unlike the other ones. And yeah, even though the car flies, it's gonna help it rotate, and it's gonna help us carry a lot of exit speed as well. So just like that, careful with the exit off track, because you will get it if you leave the track with all 4 tires. So you always gotta keep in contact with the white line with at least 1 tire in this corner. Then we get into sector 2. For sector 2, usually I just look at the part of the tarmac where it starts thinning out. Well, the little part of tarmac between the white line and the grass. When it starts thinning out, I start to brake and almost immediately start to turn in as well. It's roughly where the 50 marker is. So just like this, drop it to third. Also keep it in fourth, by the way, between these 2 corners. You don't want to shift to fifth because you waste time doing so. So just like that, stamp the brakes to roughly around 40%. And yeah, trail off the brakes up until this point, drop it to third, and as you're going over the curve, get completely off the brakes, because otherwise the front end is going to be too low and you're going to bottom out quite heavily. So as you're driving over the curve here, you always got to keep in contact with 2 tires with the white line, but I don't cut that much because otherwise the car flies too much, and when it lands it bottoms out, so it ends up being counterproductive. So yeah, once it lands, I start to brake again and I stick it to the left side for as long as possible. And yeah, trail off the brakes up until this point, hit the throttle before you actually hit the curve, and get as close as possible to this inside sausage curve on the right. And then on the exit, you just gotta make sure that you keep in contact with the first part of the curve, the part that is banked at all times, because otherwise you will get an off track. So back to the right side, in preparation for the hairpin, we are gonna brake at the 50 marker, and we're gonna drop it to second gear, just like this. Hold it to around 70% braking pressure. Keep it as tight as possible without actually driving over the curve, because otherwise it's gonna bottom out. And well, it's not actually gonna bottom out, but it's gonna spin the inside rear, and you're gonna lose traction. So it's better not to drive over it. And then on the exit, you gotta make sure that you drive over the entire astroturf. As long as you keep 2 tires touching the white line, you'll be fine. But you gotta make sure that you use the entirety of the track. Then on the uphill, you can get away with keeping it on the right side of the track. The car has enough downforce for that. Then for this double left-hander, we're gonna brake at the 50 marker, and yeah, we're gonna drop it to third gear. Start to turn in roughly around here, and then use the inside curve in order to help you rotate the car. The first part only, the bank part, because otherwise it's gonna bottom out quite heavily. So really recommend doing that. On the exit, it's quite easy to get an off track because the corner sort of tightens up on the exit. So be careful with the throttle application, because it's quite easy to get it. I think the limit is the white line, so you gotta keep in contact with the white line at all times with 2 tires, with the 2 left side tires. So no, actually it's not. Yeah, I think it's maybe this worn out part of the curve. If you cross over that, you will get an off track. But that's the thing with this track. There's not a clear defined rule in terms of off tracks in many places. Like some places it's the white line, some others it's the curve. It's a bit all over the place. So yeah. And then on the left side, you need to drive over the gutter here in order to lose meters, just like that, as soon as the curve ends. And then this double right-hander, one of the trickiest corners on the track. Not so much with this car because it has ABS, so it's a bit harder to run deep. You want to start to turn in as soon as the skid marks appear on the asphalt, and almost immediately at the same time start to brake. And as you're going over this curve on the right, we do this in order to be able to brake in a straight line, by the way. You need to bleed off the brakes a little bit so that it doesn't bottom out as hard. And once it's settled from the curve strike, you can get on the brakes again and slow the car down for this right-hander. You also gotta make sure that you get as close as possible to the grass that is beyond the curve here on the left, without actually driving over it. But yeah, you just gotta make sure that you use all of the track basically through here. So second gear, I don't really like driving over the curve here on the inside because I feel like it makes the car understeer a little bit because it's an uphill corner and the car is already quite loaded. So yeah, it just makes things worse in my opinion. So keep it in second, drive over this first part of the banked curve, if anything, not any farther than that. And then on the exit, just be a little patient with the throttle and keep in contact with the curve, with the inner edge of the curve, this one, with 2 tires at all times. And that way you won't get an off track. So this is what I was talking about the limit being super inconsistent. In some places it's the white line and here is the actual curve. So bit all over the place, but it is what it is. And then we go back to the left side of the track for preparing for last chicane. I brake at this clear stain on the asphalt, and yeah, that's usually what I look at, either that or the 50 marker, drop it to second gear. Another place where track limits are a bit all over the place. I think the limit is the inside AstroTurf, so the green AstroTurf between the yellow and black sausage curve, weird thingy, and the actual grass, that is the limit. So that's what I tried, where I tried to put the right side tires. So just like that, you can cut quite a bit, as you can see, as you're in the air. Well, while you're in the air, you don't want to have any inputs. And as soon as the car lands, you want to tap the brakes a little bit again in order to tuck the nose in and be able to rotate the car around the left-hander. And then, yeah, pick up the throttle before you actually hit the curve in order to make the curve strike less impactful. And as you're hitting the curve, obviously, be careful with the throttle application. Wait until it settles to be able to put the power down. Just like that, go to 100%. Let the car track wide here over the curve. As long as you keep two tires touching the curve, you'll be fine, and you won't get enough track. And here, go to the left side of the track to the less meters. And as you're about to go under the bridge, start to turn in so that you can brake in a straight line for the last braking zone, really, last sector. Here I start to brake as soon as the skid marks on the curve end on the right. So just like that, hold it very hard on the brakes, like around 75 to 80%. Tail of the brakes up until this point, and you want to put the left side tires beyond the curve and into this AstroTurf between the grass and the actual curve. So second gear, tail of the brakes, hit the throttle here. Be patient with the throttle because it's gonna understeer quite a bit through here. So you cannot really go 100% throttle at any point up until here. And yeah, start to turn in before you actually hit the brakes, and you need to open up the entry as much as possible here, because otherwise, yeah, the corner tightens up quite a bit. I don't really know where the hard limit of the off-track is. I think it's just two tires touching the curve at all times and you'll be fine. But yeah, you gotta get really close to the off-track in order to be efficient and fast through the sector. Just like this, bit of a late turn in order to be able to carry more speed through the main straight. So keep it in second, use the inside curve to help you rotate the car, and be careful with the exit off-track through here as well. I like to keep it in second. You may also find speed in short shift into third, but I think it's just a bit off the power band if you short shift to third, so I prefer to keep it in second. And then on the exit here, you can fully get on the AstroTurf, on the flat part of the AstroTurf, and as long as you keep two tires touching the curve, you'll be fine. And then through the start-finish line, you need to drive as close as possible to this guardrail on the right in order to less meters, and just stay as close as possible to the right all the way to the start-finish line, which is here. And if you pay close attention, the finish line is closer to you if you are closer to the right. I don't know if that makes sense, because it's not entirely perpendicular to the track, so you're gonna take advantage of that as well. So yeah, that's it. Don't forget to head over to apexracingac.com or by clicking the link in the description below. Also, don't forget to join the Discord server, where we are providing support for every car, not just the Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo, as well as the coaching sessions that we host on Wednesday evenings for IMSA, where a coach is gonna sit with you for anything between an hour and 2 hours. And yeah, you can just ask him voice chat whatever questions you have, and he can watch you drive in real time. So it's like a massive deal, because you basically get a coaching session for free. So yeah, take full advantage of that, and see you next one.